What do you see when you imagine the future? When we picture what's to come, we often think of innovations that take us to new heights. Some of them are already here, and every day, thousands more make the jump from our imagination into reality. Nowhere is this more evident than here in Japan. Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies are fundamentally transforming the way we do things. All this is happening so fast, and we must do more than just keep up. These emerging technologies open up boundless possibilities of what our future could look like. Technology is not a simple solution to our problems. It poses questions that we need to answer and guidelines we need to write together. That's why we're all here. A global event hosted by Japan that brings together the world's leading voices across disciplines and geographies. How technology will shape our tomorrow depends on the choices we make today. And that starts now.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Jurgens, Managing Director at the World Economic Forum, and I'd like to thank all of our global audiences for joining us for this session on leading industry transformation. We've had a great first day of our inaugural Global Technology Governance Summit. We've had worldwide coverage, over 10 million visitors, video views, and social media already in the first day, and I expect the second day to be even stronger with the rich program that we have. Today's session is extremely important as we look at the role the industry has to play in helping both shape and advance the broader objectives of improving technology governance. And I'd like to just call out three specific areas where the forum's contributing to this domain. First is our industry programs. We have a rich set of industry programs covering 20 industries where we look at the most pressing issues within each industry, whether that's in energy, in health, in manufacturing, or finance. In each of these sectors, we actively work with industry leaders to understand the critical issues, as well as on what needs to be done to address them. The second core element of our program is actually around global innovators and what we call technology pioneers. These are the companies that actually show us what's possible in the domain of transformation, how companies can improve, and it gives us a kind of a pulse on what we can expect and what can emerge before it happens. And the third area I'd like to bring attention to is our network of Fourth Industrial Revolution centers, which are around the world. In today's session, we're co-hosting with our center in Japan and our partner, the Asia Pacific Initiative. And these centers are important in actually prototyping and exploring what rolling out new technologies looks like on the ground in countries and cities around the world. So with that, I'm looking forward to an extremely engaging session and welcome our contributors. And I'll hand over now to Dr. Funabashi. Funabashi-san, I don't think we can hear you. Can you check your audio?
Can you hear me?
Yes, there we go.
Now, okay.
There.
Jeremy, thank you. Thank you very much. Before getting on to business, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to both Professor Klaus Schwab and Jeremy Jurgens for launching this extremely visionary and imaginative platform of meeting the finest minds from all over the world to explore how we should harness the fruits of the technologies while managing the risks. So once again, I'm very much delighted to be a part of this exercise. Thank you. Klaus Schwab, Professor Schwab told us that when he wrote a book about the fourth industrial revolution several years ago, he thought that 23 technologies were the key. So he identified 23 technologies as the pillars of the fourth industrial revolution. And that he thought at that time that they were a science fiction at best. But it have become to be a reality. So in a way, we actually have been very much adept at harnessing and developing that technologies. But at the same time, we are not so sure to what extent we can manage to control the technology. For instance, a synthetic biology is one of those technologies. We now realize that messenger RNA is really the key to fight against that COVID-19. At the same time, we are not so sure that vaccination could actually really will be that golden key to fight against that coronavirus. So we have a lot of questions to be answered. We are extremely fortunate to have a stellar panelist today. I would like to introduce all the panelists. First, we have Governor Yuriko Koike, the governor of Tokyo Metropolitan Government.
Thank you.
Ms. Koike was a TV newscaster, and she is an Arabist too. When she was a minister of the environment, she promoted a cool biz, a type of business style used to tackle global warming. She then went to become Japan's first female defense minister. Next is Jim Hageman Tsunabe, chairman of Siemens, as well as a member of the board of trustees at the World Economic Forum. He also is an adjunct professor at Copenhagen Business School. Prime Minister Brnabić is the Prime Minister of Serbia, and in that role has focused on digitization, education, public service, and economic reforms. He is known for transforming the economy to move forward, one based on knowledge and innovation, while increasing average wages. Hanzade Doğan is chairwoman of Hapsi Buludada and is a leading figure in Turkey's online and digital world, as well as philanthropist. She is also chairwoman of the Aydan Doğan Foundation, which launched the Daddy Send Me School campaign that granted 50,000 scholarships to young girls and built 33 girls' dormitories across Turkey. I would like to each panelist to make some brief opening remarks. First, let me turn to Governor Koike for her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Funabashi. Thank you for your kind introduction. And I'm very thankful for this opportunity to participate in the Global Technology Governance Summit with such honorable participants of the world. It is a great pleasure and honor to participate in this meeting under the leadership of current President of World Economic Forum, Mr. Brende, who was my trustworthy counterpart when he served as Norway's Minister of the Environment, and I was Japan's Environment Minister. Now, this meeting, which connects speakers online from around the world, exemplifies the changes that have occurred in the world over this past year. Now, with remote work and online meetings, just like today, the pandemic has greatly changed the way we live and work, and it is reawakening us to the power of digital technology. And I believe that while upholding individual freedom and human rights, digital transformation must be inclusive, ensuring that no one is left behind in benefiting from it. And at the Tokyo government, we are also strengthening our system to promote digital transformation and launch the Bureau of Digital Services on this April. And in general, Japanese offices still lag behind in use of a lot of paper. So we place a little goat, yes, a stuffed animal in the bureau to get rid of all that paperwork by eating it. Now in Japan, there is a phrase from days of old, a martial arts concept known as Shingitai. You know, of course, Dr. Funabashi about it. Shin means mind, Gi means skill, and Tai means body. Only by integrating these three elements can one achieve their best performance. So let me apply for this concept to Tokyo, and Shin is the mind of the people, Gi is technology, the theme of this summit, and Tai is policy supporting both mind and technology. As a matter of fact, as Dr. Funabashi introduced me by using the very well-known campaign of Kubi's. Kubi's has all these Shingitai. So it was so successful. Now, from this Shingitai perspective, I am now advancing measures for economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic while also responding climate change and other challenges in order to ensure sustainable recovery, Tokyo's action for green recovery. Now, a large portion of a city's carbon emissions originate from buildings. Achieving sustainable building is a common challenge and goal for the world's cities. And in 2010, Tokyo launched the world's first urban cap and trade program requiring CO2 reductions at existing buildings, including office buildings. And in fiscal 2018, the covered facilities achieved reductions of as much as 27% compared to base year emissions, attracting a great deal of interest from New York and other cities. And Tokyo is also making it mandatory for more than 30,000 small and medium-sized facilities to submit energy data and other such reports, as well as advancing efforts to facilitate online submissions. Such initiatives are drawing much attention from other cities, primarily from within Asia. And since 2019, Tokyo has also been providing Kuala Lumpur with policy support concerning measures for buildings. Now, digitalizing air quality monitoring data is also essential in raising the efficiency of environmental countermeasures. We will promote digital transformation of 21st century social infrastructure to ensure business continuity and create new businesses even amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Now the world is confronting two major crises, the COVID-19 pandemic and the climate change. In order to overcome these two crises, under the rallying cry of time to act, Tokyo is rolling out a movement to accelerate climate action for the future. And Tokyo will surge forward with digital transformation in order to create new value, innovations for a sustainable recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Koike. Our next speaker is Jim Snabe. Jim, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and honored to be on this panel and participating in this important conversation. I have to admit that I would have loved to be in Tokyo today. It's been a while since I went on a long trip. It's not that I necessarily promote a lot of travel, but I think it's time we get together as human beings again in the same room and discuss. We will make it digitally as well. And let me say that I'm extremely thrilled about this discussion around industrial transformation. In my opinion, we've seen the first wave of digitalization, which was really around consumer apps. It was around social media and entertainment. And while that was an important, let's say, new set of tools, I think this next wave, which I call the industrial digitization, is dramatically more valuable, and therefore one that we should pay even more attention to. It's the kind of transformation where we can solve the fundamental challenges that the world still has around creating sustainable energy systems, sustainable transportation systems. We can create a much more efficient manufacturing systems. We will have lifelong learning, digitally supported, and ideally healthcare systems that are more prevention oriented than fixing diseases oriented. So many, I think, high value opportunities when we take digital into an industrial context. Now, for me, COVID was in many ways a disastrous moment, and it caught us by surprise. But if there's a few things that I take from COVID, first of all, it is our ability to transform rapidly as human beings. I have not seen such a big transformation of human being behavior and tradition in such a short period of time. So what if we could take that ability to transform more rapidly into the future and try and solve three problems to be with us after COVID-19. First of all, it's obvious to me that we will see an accelerated digitization. And I think it's important that we realize that once we bring digital into industry and mission critical infrastructures, we need to have a much more responsible type of digitization where we do not steal people's privacy and where we create trust in digital technologies and not destroy trusts or democracies. So there's the first task. How do we use digital technologies in critical infrastructures in a trustful and responsible way? The second challenge that will come was already addressed, which is the need to accelerate climate action. Before COVID, we discussed whether we could afford it. Now we have so much recovery funds coming into the economy that it seems like we have more than enough money. And the challenge will be to guide this money, not in building ourselves back to before COVID, but to accelerate a more sustainable future, invest in infrastructures that accelerate sustainable energy, transportation systems, etc. These are areas of investment where we not only create value in terms of growth and jobs, but also is the sustainability agenda accelerated. And my last challenge, and therefore I love also to see the politicians coming into this play, is my concern around globalization. I think there will be a risk that we will reverse globalization, as we've now been closing down countries for a while and kind of thought that worked well. Well, I can assure you as chairman of A.P. Møller-Mærsk, the largest shipping company in the world, that the shops were still open. And that was because global value chains still worked. And we need to ensure that we don't try and nationalize or close down countries after COVID-19, but in fact create more resilient supply chains where we have not one source for our material, but multiple sources. This requires more complex value chains and hence a much more collaborative global trade. And so my hope is that we will see this opportunity as an opportunity to accelerate a responsible digital agenda, climate action, so that we get the future infrastructures up to play right now, and of course collaboration around global trade, so that we create opportunities for everyone in a better future. Those are my hopes, and I'll leave the floor to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for sharing your insight with us. Prime Minister Brnabić, we now invite you to make initial remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Funabashi. All the other panelists, it's a great pleasure and a great privilege to be with you today. And I would also echo what my predecessor has said. I'm hoping that soon enough we'll be able to actually meet again in conferences. I think, you know, before COVID, there were perhaps too many conferences. Right now, I miss traveling and I miss really talking to people live and face to face. But in any event, I really thank you for initiating this important subject. I think the subject is going to be of increasing importance as the world tries to overcome the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Serbia has placed digitization and innovation as a #1 priority in our future development and everything else that we do as the government in Serbia. So 5 years ago, we have decided to almost completely shift our reform priorities and the way we do things in Serbia. And there were 3 key areas on which we focused specifically. One, obviously, was the economy. And our goal was to go from investment-driven economy and mainly investment-driven economy, mainly based on labor-intensive investments, where we needed to be, because back in 2012, so about 9 years ago, 10 years ago, our of 25%. It was staggering. It was unbelievable. But at that point in time, you know, our development goal was there to the economy, which is innovation-driven and knowledge-based, and digital and innovation basically was the cornerstone of that reform. The second key pillar, obviously, was education. We wanted to fully digitize our education. We are going to complete that process by 2022. So introducing digital textbooks, high-speed internet access in all the classrooms. In 2017, we made coding and programming a mandatory subject in our elementary school. And this year, we are going to have the first generation of school children leaving elementary school with the knowledge of key program languages, Scratch, Python, Pygame, and Jupyter. We wanted to focus on education in order to enable our youth to be prepared for the jobs of the 21st century. But that really meant to teach them how to think and not what to think. And the third key area really was government. So introducing e-government, making all of the services that government provides to its citizens and to its businesses, all of it, make it electronic. That would cut time, increase the efficiency of the government, increase transparency of the government. It would mean fighting corruption. It would mean making the government fully citizen-centric. And then also, what is extremely important to me, it would also, digitizing the government means that you make government available to its citizens and all of the businesses 24/7, 365 days a week. The government is basically available to its citizens. So those were our 3 key pillars, and we have done a lot. And I think thinking about these things from the point of view of COVID-19 pandemic, I think that everything we have done in digitization, and especially in these 3 key pillars, paid off during the pandemic. And I will tell you just a few examples. Economically, it made us more stable and more resilient. We have focused on the services sector, ICT sector, startups, research and development, high tech. And actually, our ICT sector and services sector overall, but ICT sector in particular, as of 2017, started growing at a rate of 25% and above year on year. So when the pandemic hit, we were more resilient. Our GDP decline in 2020 was only 1%, and our GDP growth in 2019 was 4.2%. So from quite a dynamic growth, the decline in 2020 wasn't that large, and in that respect, Serbia is going to be probably, we're waiting for the statistics from all European nations, but probably we're going to be between the first and the second place in Europe. In terms of education, because we were preparing to go digital, and then a lot of our textbooks were already digital, we've trained most of our teachers to go digital. When the pandemic struck, I think we were the only country in Europe that did not lose even a single day of schooling. So when we needed to go online, we finalized with kind of physically going to school on Friday afternoon. Monday morning, everyone was already online. Our net employment in 2020 grew because the employment in the ICT sector grew by some 14.5%. I mean, it's not all about digital. Obviously, we have provided a very strong support, fiscal support to our economy during the pandemic, but going digital really helped us. So we overall, the net employment, even faced with the pandemic, grew. And finally, our public services continued uninterrupted, and even things which a year ago needed to be done physically, such as enrolling kids to kindergartens or schools, were able to go fully digital and fully electronic during the pandemic. So in that respect, the government services did not change a lot. We were prepared for the pandemic. So overall, digitization pays off, and especially when faced with crises such as this one. It also helped us in a successful mass immunization campaign, but I can tell you a little bit more about it in the future, or when we talk about these things in the follow-up questions. And finally, medicine, artificial intelligence, and life sciences in general. I think that will be the focus of much of the investments, and that is where I think the competitiveness of countries, smaller countries like Serbia, lies in. So the transformation continues in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next speaker, Hanzade. It's your turn to make your initial remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Funabashi. I'm very happy to be here today, especially together with inspiring women leaders like Prime Minister Branovic and Governor Yuriko, as well as our other panelists. There is no doubt that the pandemic accelerated the adoption of technology in many ways, from increase in e-commerce penetration to the usage of video conferences. At Hepsiburada, we lived through all these transformations at their full intensity within the first few weeks of the pandemic. For those of you who might not know, Hepsiburada, which means everything is here, is the leading e-commerce platform in Turkey. Our vision is to lead digitalization of commerce. We manage a large ecosystem with more than 50,000 merchants, 30 million users, almost half of the adult population in our country. As a super app, we go well beyond standard e-commerce. We provide instant grocery deliveries under Hepsi Express. We provide flight tickets under Hepsi Fly. And we also enable easy online payment solutions under our brand Hepsi Pay. If I step back and tell you what I think the pandemic fundamentally changed in our world, or the major three trends that I see triggered by the pandemic, the first, I would say, a need to rebalance between efficiency versus resilience and scalability emerged. Pandemic made for many businesses slowed down the growth. But on the other hand, for most of the tech companies, we've experienced an immense surge within days. And if at Hepsi Burada, if our platform, our tech platform, when we were building, if we were only focused on efficiency and not on resilience and scalability, there is no way we would have managed to serve that increased in demand. At the same way, on our operations, we had to double our workforce within few weeks. And we had the systems to enable us to scale our workforce without compromising any health and safety issues. So our focus when we run our businesses, efficiency versus resilience and scalability, a slight rebalancing might be needed. The second trend I see is an acceleration of convergence between online and offline world. And also, there is a rising consensus that the two worlds will and should coexist. Like all the esteemed panelists before me suggested that Zoom meetings are very efficient, very good, but we all miss to be together in the same room. And online school is useful, but for the well-being of all of us, the kids need to go back to school. And at the same time, yes, e-commerce platforms like Hepsi Burada is essential for our lives today. We can't live without those platforms, but we also miss offline retail. So the two worlds will coexist, in my view, and the pandemic has underlined this trend. The third, and for me, the most important awareness and change that the pandemic showed us, I would say there is a change happened in our perception and expectations from technology and from the tech companies. Pre-pandemic, we were all inspired by the disruptive power of technology. E-commerce disrupts retail. Fintech disrupts banking. Autonomous cars. So technology will come and eliminate certain industries. At Hepsi Burada, we've never been about disruption. From our founding, we always said it's about cooperation and being an enabler. But I think during pandemic, now there is a bigger social awareness that we want tech power to be more inclusive. We want tech power to act as an enabler rather than saying, I am eliminating all these industries. I think this is very important. And that can only happen if you have the right values in your companies. We can't just change that mindset through regulations or having bigger government. Corporations have those values in themselves. The social awareness or social responsibility has never. So when the first case happened in Turkey, our initial reaction was do we secure the well-being of our employees? We've provided all necessary PPEs. We've increased our service buses to have social distancing. We increased the number of shifts, so fewer people were on our fulfillment centers. And we made sure we communicate our essential workers that their well-being becomes, before everything else. At the same time, we stood by our merchants as well. At the peak of the pandemic, when all the shopping malls and retailers were closed, our merchants, our brands and retailers relied on our platform to survive. And we lowered our commissions to 1/3 of what we would usually charge to support them as well. And it gave us to show our true character, and I'm proud that we rise to the occasion. And I believe the need of new social contract in a way between corporations and society is an area we will need to give more attention and discuss further post-pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was so much inspired by Hanzade's remarks, so I really would like to change that order of asking the question. Hanzade, so how then do you compete with a global platform? And you strongly believe in resilience, and as a national platform, you have some very much valuable things to protect and defend, and to compete with that global platform. But how do you do that?
Yes, sure.
Does that still the national platform as such still exist, can exist in face of the presence of the global platform?
Sure. I mean, Hepsi Burada is a rare example of a national champion. I mean, you have Rakuten in Japan, but Turkey is a very competitive market. Amazon and Alibaba, they're active here. So how do we compete with these two global giants? Of things. I mean, first, we are a household name. Our brand is associated with trust. So it's not all about only about selection and competitive prices, but our quality of service is unmatched in the market. We do frictionless return, which doesn't even happen in many of the Western countries. Our customers can just click